In this video we are going to put an end to the never-ending discussion. What is the true and the most accurate pronunciation for Koine Greek? I hear this question all the time. Stan, what is the most accurate pronunciation of Koine Greek? And this is a good question because as we learn the language we want to know how it was pronounced. So we're gonna do it in 3 steps. First, we're gonna list all the schools of pronunciation which we have today, and then we're gonna go to the second and the main part of our study. We're gonna go back in time to the 1st century and see how Koine Greek was really pronounced back then. And this is where I'm going to bring my argument, which is surprisingly overlooked. At least I have never heard anybody using that argument in the discussion of the Koine Greek pronunciation. So that argument is gonna give us an edge, and hopefully it will resolve this problem. So it's gonna be new, it's gonna be fresh, and it's gonna answer our question. So, and when we learn the true Koine pronunciation of the 1st century, we're gonna go back to our days and evaluate those schools of pronunciation which we have today to see which one of them is the closest to the true Koine Greek pronunciation. And this is where I'm gonna give you my recommendations on what pronunciation you should choose for your personal studies. So, let's begin. We have 3 main schools of pronunciation for Koine Greek. Number 1 is the Erasmian school of pronunciation, named after Desiderius Erasmus, the 16th century Dutch scholar and theologian. He created this school of pronunciation back then, so it was a phenomenal achievement. His pronunciation is very simple, and for that specific reason it is widely used today. So the second school of pronunciation is the modern Greek pronunciation. Koine Greek is still Greek, and so it should be pronounced the same way as the modern Greeks pronounce their language today. And so there is some logic and some benefits in this approach to Koine Greek pronunciation. And so the third school of pronunciation is the reconstructed pronunciation. So it stands somewhere in the middle between the Erasmian and the modern Greek pronunciation. And the way it works, that the scholars analyze hundreds and even thousands of manuscripts. More specifically, they analyze the errors or typos, the kind of misspellings in those manuscripts. To simplify it, this is how it works. For example, if one word is spelled one way, but suddenly in a few manuscripts it is spelled differently. Why is it spelled differently? Copying happened by hearing, when one person would read manuscripts and several scribes would copy what they hear. And so the different spellings probably had the same sound. And so this is how they try to reconstruct how Koine Greek, they believe, was pronounced back then. So here we have these 3 schools of pronunciation. Now let's go back to the 1st century and try to analyze and understand how Koine Greek was truly pronounced. And by the way, before we proceed, I want to ask you to leave a comment. What is your preferred school of pronunciation, and what are the reasons why you chose that pronunciation system? When it comes to studying the Koine Greek pronunciation, usually this question is approached diachronically. That is to say that how the language changed its pronunciation through time. But often it is overlooked how the language spreads and changes geographically. You see, Koine Greek by default is the international language, which means it was the lingua franca of the 1st century. It all started with Alexander the Great conquering the Mediterranean, Middle East, all the way to India. And he spread the Greek culture and Greek language throughout his empire. This process was called Hellenization. And so the language used in all of those conquered territories simplified, so it wasn't that classical Greek anymore. Even when the Romans took over the Greek Empire, the language still remained because it was simple. It was the language of the common people, and this is what Koine Greek means. It means common Greek, easy to learn, and people wanted to use that language. To understand how the Koine Greek was pronounced back then, we need to understand how the lingua franca of today is pronounced. And the lingua franca of the 21st century is English. Today, English is the international language. Everybody wants to learn it. If you want to study, if you want to do business, if you want to be heard, you do it in English. Even I do my videos in English, even though English is my second language. So today, lingua franca is English. And so what is the most accurate pronunciation of English? And the answer is simple. There is no one unified pronunciation of English today. Look, we have British English with Irish and Scottish flavors. We have American English, we have Australian English, we have South African English, and then we have Indian English and Filipino English. And of course, we have the multicultural English with accents. For example, we have Hispanic accents. We have European accents and the Slavic accents of the Eastern Europe. And then we move to Asia, and there's all sorts of Asian accents. And then African people, they bring their flavor to English. So there is no one way to pronounce English today. Look, there are many videos on YouTube of the differences between accents. I'm not the best accent impersonator, but I'm gonna share a few examples. The word worker, how do we pronounce it? What is the accurate pronunciation of this word? Well, in British English it would sound a little bit softer, like worker, while in America we like to make those R's heard, so we would say worker. And in the Slavic countries of the Eastern Europe, we would really roll those R's. We would say worker, he is a good worker. So you see, there is no one way of pronouncing the international language. One day I had an Australian student in my class who came and who said, it is a good day to die. And I was thinking, I don't know, I don't want to die. But in reality, he said, it is a good day today. So what is the true pronunciation of the word today? It is with some kind of A sound, to die, or with the E sound, today. So now let's look at two examples for kind of cultural flavor of pronouncing English. I lived several years in Asia, and I know firsthand that for many Asian people, the difference between the letters L and R is non-existent. They just don't hear the difference in pronouncing those letters. So maybe they can hear it, but they cannot reproduce it. It's difficult for them to reproduce the difference between these two letters. And the word rice can quickly become lice. And a simple sentence, he has rice, can quickly become he has lice. Imagine if these people would copy the manuscripts. You know, one person is trying to say he has rice, but it sounds like he has lice, and somebody hears totally different. Does it mean that the letters L and R make the same sound? No, they make two different sounds. So we can see that the reconstructed theory has some weak points as well. And now the last example is from my own Slavic culture. You know, the ending or the suffix ing is somewhat difficult for us. You know, we know that the g sound is silent, so it's not ing, and we know that it's not in, it's somewhere in between n and g, so ing. But we don't have this sound in our culture, so it's difficult to pronounce it. And my personal stumbling block is the word singer. So how do you pronounce it? I know it's not singer, and I know that it's not sinner. It's somewhere in between singer, and let's say I want to say he is a singer. I'm so much afraid to say he is a sinner. So for this reason, I will insert that slight g sound. So I'd better say he is the singer rather than he is a sinner, you know, so it's better to be safe than sorry. And I know that I sound a little bit incorrect, but at least I will not offend the person. So I guess you got the point which I'm trying to make. There is no one unified way of pronouncing English today. It is an international language, and even for the people for whom English is the first language, who are native English speakers, there is no one unified way of pronouncing it. You got my point. Now let's take a look at the Koine Greek of the first century. I can guarantee you that the African Koine in Alexandria in Egypt sounded different than the Koine in Rome and in Italy. And the Italian Koine sounded different than the Koine in Greece. And Greeks spoke Koine differently than, let's say, people of Middle East, like Asia Minor, Syria, and Judea. Everybody had their own pronunciation. There is no one way to pronounce Koine. So let me prove it to you. Do you remember the story when Peter was warming up his hands by the fire in the high priest's courtyard? You remember one of the servants said, "Hey, you are Galilean, you even speak like Galilean, and look where Galilee is and where Jerusalem is. This is a very short distance. Look at the distance of Koine we are talking about, right?" And Peter was a native Aramaic speaker, and yet he had an accent. So why did he have an accent? Because Galilee was Galilee of Gentiles. Galilee was the region highly populated by Gentiles. In fact, it was the region, most popular region for the Roman colonies. So it was populated by Romans. So who were the parents of Peter and Andrew that they named one child with the Hebrew name and another child with the Greek name? We can see the influence that those people needed to adapt to new cultures, new languages, and new environment. And the point I'm making here is simple. If Peter lived just a short distance from Jerusalem and he was a native speaker of Aramaic and he had an accent, how much more the people of the Roman Empire had an accent in the language which was the second language for them. And so this is my point of this video. There is no one way of pronouncing Koine Greek. Koine Greek by default is the multicultural, multi-accented language. Now let's go back to those three schools of pronunciation which we have and see which one is the best. So, out of these three schools of pronunciation which we have today, which one is the closest to the original Koine Greek of the 1st century? The answer is probably none of them, because the original Koine Greek was the multi-accented, multicultural language. It had no unified pronunciation. So each one of these three schools of pronunciation is not close enough, and we probably will never know how the original Koine Greek was pronounced. So, out of these three systems of pronunciation, which one should we choose in our studies of the Biblical Greek? Well, it depends on your personal goals. If you are just in the beginning of learning Biblical Greek and your primary goal is to read and translate and maybe occasionally speak Koine Greek when you pronounce those words, then I would recommend to stick with the Erasmian school of pronunciation. It is the easiest pronunciation to learn. Every letter has one particular sound. This system is by far the most popular pronunciation system of Koine Greek today. If you learn the Erasmian pronunciation, everybody will understand you, maybe with the exception of the modern Greeks. For this very reason, in all of my educational videos, I use the Erasmian pronunciation. On the other hand, if you want to converse in Koine Greek, so your primary goal is to hear and speak Koine, then I would recommend to choose the modern Greek pronunciation, because you will be able to speak not only with the other enthusiasts who embrace this pronunciation, but also with the modern Greeks. Even though the modern Greek and Koine Greek, they are a little bit different vocabulary, different grammar, but at least they share the same pronunciation. So what about the reconstructed pronunciation? Well, I would reserve it for more advanced students and learners of Koine Greek. Here we have it, three schools of pronunciation of Koine Greek. And no matter which one of them you choose, it is still a choice. And as long as you are aware of the other options and the reasons why people choose one over the other, you can have peace with yourself and peace with others. The bottom line of this video, there is no one unified pronunciation of Koine Greek. The Koine Greek is the language of the international community, and it was always spoken with accent. If you enjoyed this video and it helps you to learn, please smash that like button, comment below and subscribe to receive more videos like this. And remember, we are not just learning Greek, we are getting closer to God. So I wish you all the best. Learn Greek, love God. I'll see you in the next video.